Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. If you are looking for a tutorial on insider threats, the impact on businesses of all sizes, the mitigation strategies, and how to set up data loss prevention tool, then this video is for you. So let us begin by defining what an insider threat is. An insider threat is actually an enemy within. Just as the name implies, insider, these are the employees that work within an organization. It could be current employees, former employees, contractors, partners, or even vendors. These individuals have been given permission to carry out their official responsibility. Chances are that some of them might decide to misuse these privileges. Some of these misuse of privileges can be accidental, but some other times it could be intentional. So the whole intent of insider threats is to harm the organization's assets. So we're looking at the systems, the data that this organization have. And that is the one and only goal of insider threats. So let's take a look at the categories of insider threats. Number one is a malicious insider. So here, I'm going to put malicious insider. And who is a malicious insider? This employee that is termed malicious intentionally harms the organization's assets. So what we mean could be the employee trying to steal data or maybe trying to sabotage systems. That's intentional, not accidental. That's a malicious insider. The second type of insider threat will be carelessness. So there are certain employees that are simply negligent, so they don't care. These employees might have been trained repeatedly on how to detect phishing emails, but they still go ahead and fall victim to phishing campaign or phishing attacks. So if an employee has been repeatedly trained on how to detect phishing emails and they still fall victim to this attack, then that is purely negligence. And then the third type of insider threats would be compromised insider. An insider, which is an employee in an organization, might have gone online and downloaded some free software, not knowing that some of these software have malicious software like malware in them. So with this malicious software installed on their system, an attacker will end up stealing their credentials. So with the stolen credentials, an attacker may have access to some official systems within the network and then have access to unauthorized information. So in the insider threats, we have malicious insider, that is intentional, negligent insider, that is actual carelessness, and then compromised insider, an insider that have downloaded a tool or maybe a free software online, not knowing that this has a malware, and this has led to stolen credentials that give attackers access to enterprise systems. Now, whether we have malicious insiders or we have negligent insiders or compromised insider, what impacts will this have on businesses, be it small, mid-size, or large businesses? Let's look at the impacts on businesses. Number one that I have here is financial loss. You agree with me that if a business is having data breach, any form of data breach, where outsiders are able to access confidential information, think of personally identifiable information, either of their employees or of their customers, then this could lead to financial loss. We'll look at financial loss that can come as a result of fines for non-compliance. So if part of your customers are from the EU, which is the European Union, you know that the EU have the privacy regulation known as GDPR, which is general data protection regulation. And this could actually mean there will be a huge financial loss for your organization because of the fine that will come to them as a result of non-compliance. So that is one major impact that any business will suffer if, as a result of insider threat, they suffer data breach. Another impact on business of all size is the theft of intellectual property. That's actually the second point here. The intellectual property, things like your trade secrets, things like copyrights and what have you. So let's take a look at trade secrets. Trade secret is basically what the secret of your business is all about. That secret that you never tell anyone, and that is what is keeping you ahead of your competitors. So this could be stolen by a malicious insider, and motive could be financial gain. Maybe he have intention of selling this information to a competitor. It could also serve as a revenge. Maybe the so-called insider or the employee is disgruntled and he feels that he's been victimized by the organization and is actually looking for a way to pay the organization back in their own terms. So that could be another impact on business. So when they steal your trade secret and sell it to your competitor, that gives your competitor an edge, an undue advantage. Now, how about public relations? So if you have a data breach, you're actually going to have PR crisis, because when the news get to the public, eventually it's going to affect your stock. So if your company is a publicly traded company, then there will be a drop in their stock prices. And obviously, some customers, when they get to know that the organization that they are doing businesses with have been compromised, they are going to withdraw. And that will lead to a drop in customers' confidence. These and many more are the negative implications on businesses that can come as a result of insider threats. Now, the question is, what can we do to mitigate these threats? Let's take a look at the mitigation strategies for insider threats. So, number one mitigation that we want to talk about is access control. So, when we are talking about access control, we are majorly focusing on identification and authentication, right? And these two have to come first before we now authorize, right? So identification, you claim to be someone, we have to find a way to prove that's your claim. And this could include multi-factor authentication, right? And then we go ahead and give you permission as to what you're allowed to do. That is access control. So when we are implementing access control, we want to ensure that we have the principle of least privilege all the time. So the principle of least privilege in access control implementation allows us to give only the permissions that our employees need to carry out the official function, nothing more and nothing less. That is least privilege principle. Okay? So if you are in an organization where a marketing staff or a staff in the marketing department is able to access the company's source code for their maybe e-commerce website, then that actually is a big issue, because it means that staff within the marketing department has more privileges that probably he needs in order to carry out his official duty. Now, that is number one mitigation strategy, having access control and then implementing it with the principle of least privilege. Another major mitigation strategy is employee awareness training. So training is one of the greatest tools that we have. Why we say so? We need to train the human beings, the people that will be using the technology. We need to help the employees to know how to spot phishing email. We need to help them to have strong password hygiene. And once we're able to train the employees, we are in a better position to detect and tackle insider threats. The third mitigation strategy is monitoring. We need to monitor that the controls that we have in place are working effectively. User activity monitoring, which is also referred to as user and entity behavior analytics. This helps us to detect unusual data access. For instance, if someone within the sales department is downloading HR files at night, that can only trigger suspicion. So if you're able to implement endpoint monitoring or user activity monitoring, it's going to help us to keep an eye on insider threats and be able to proactively shut them down. The last point we want to look at in the mitigation strategies is the offboarding process. So when a company or an organization wants to terminate an employee, how should it be done? We want to ensure that IT department is in the know so that they will be able to remove all access that this particular employee have immediately, even before the exit interview. The moment we are aware that the employee is about to be informed of the termination, all access and privileges should be withdrawn. So these are some of the mitigation strategies that we can put in place in order to help us to manage insider threats. Now, let's look at the last section in this slide here. What are the tools that we have out there that we can actually use to implement DLP? DLP is data loss prevention. So you don't want data like PII or sensitive PII to actually escape the official system. Either they put it in an email attachment or they are actually taking this data to cloud storage, personal cloud storage like Dropbox, Google Drive, etc. We want to ensure that data that is classified as sensitive or confidential never leaves the organization. So there are tools that we can use to ensure that this is implemented. In a small environment that have big Microsoft presence, let's say you're a small to mid-sized business and you're already in Office 365, then it will be very perfect for you as an organization to go for Microsoft Purview. So actually have it here. So Microsoft Purview DLP solution can actually help you to even track the kind of data that your employees are sending, even via their email. That's the capability of Purview. And in mid-sized businesses, you can actually go for Endpoint Protector. And then in large environments, in large organizations, you can go for Symantec data loss prevention, or you go for Force Point data loss prevention. All right. Now, in the demonstration, which I'm going to carry out in the next video after this very one, I won't be using Purview or Endpoint Protector or Symantec. Rather, I'm going to use this tool here, CurrentWare. It's a very useful tool that can help us to implement data loss prevention and also user activity monitoring. So if you're a small business and you are looking at a low budget tool that can still get the job done in terms of DLP solutions and end user monitoring, then CurrentWare is a tool that you should give a try. I'm not representing CurrentWare in any capacity, but I've used this solution for some of my clients, and this tool is actually loaded, especially when it comes to low budget businesses that want to ensure that they have a very good DLP solution and user behavior analytics. So this is the size of this very intro video to insider threats and data loss prevention. In the next video to follow, we are going to be downloading currentware, and I will eventually be installing it on a Windows Server 2022, and we'll see how we can set it up and configure it for DLP solution. If you found value in this presentation, kindly like this video, subscribe to the channel, and then turn on the notification button so that when the next video drops, you'll be notified. Thank you for watching, and see you in the part 2 of this video, where we'll be downloading the DLP solution and setting it up. Bye for now.